All right, so that is just a brief overview about Screencastify and Bitmoji Classrooms. Now we are going to head into our Q&A part of the presentation. All right.
So one of the questions on here is about Aries and linking Google Classroom. So I can see my students on Aries and I already linked my Google Classroom. Will I need to redo it after tonight? You shouldn't need to redo it. If they already flipped that switch and we're now able to connect everything and link it, you should not need to redo it. And you should see your students populate within your Google Classroom. So what I would do come Monday morning, go into your Google Classroom, click on the People tab, and look for your students. Those students should match the students on your Aries attendance and in your Aries roster. And if they don't match it, then you can relink it, but they should match it if they're linked up.
Another question is, let's see, where'd it go? Okay. Another question was, how come I can only hear you? So one of the participants asked, how come they can only hear Satara and I, and they can't hear the other people that are in this webinar with us? That is because it is a webinar. So webinars are set up where only the panelists have video and audio, but the participants can interact on the chat, or they can interact in the Q&A section. So chat, you would be able to see anyone who is in here. You would be able to see what they post. The Q&A goes directly to the panelists. So the Q&A comes straight to Satara and I. If Satara and I answer a question, typing it out in the Q&A, then everyone will see that answer. But if we just answer live like how we're answering now, then people will hear that as well.
Another question is, so I heard you say not to set up reoccurring meetings and to set the date for the Zoom meeting for the last day of the school year. Can you go over that once again? Yes, we can definitely go over that. So I can get that up and then I can share my screen. So Marshall, do you want to answer the next question while I log in?
Sure. Okay. There was another question on Zoom. Okay, so the next one, it says, my first day meeting, how can we easily get the students onto Google Classroom? Can we put the link on Zoom or have them annotate on Zoom? So getting your kids, the easiest way to get them to Google Classroom, so there's a couple things that you can do, is you can on Clever, so when they log into their Chromebooks, the first window that pops up for them is going to be Clever. So if they log into Clever and then they scroll down a little bit, there's a section for Google Apps. If they click on Google Classroom, it'll take them straight to Google Classroom. If they don't want to go that route, most students, if they've used it before, they know that they can go to their waffle, they can go to Google Classroom that way. But probably the easiest way with the least amount of steps would be in Clever, have them scroll down a little bit, click on the Google Classroom logo, is going to take them straight to Google Classroom. And then there, once you have your Aries and your Google Classroom connected, all they'll see is they'll see your class there, and they'll see a button that says join. They just click join. They don't have to worry about typing in a code. They don't have to worry about doing any of that stuff. And then you can post an announcement on that stream. So the very first thing that they see is today's Zoom link, and you can just post the link right there with the password. They click on it, boom, now they're in your Zoom meeting. So that is probably the easiest way to get them to Google Classroom if they've never done it before. But I know some know, okay, I just need to click on the waffle, go to Classroom, but there is that Google Apps option in Clever.
And then to piggyback on what Marshall said, some teachers are even kind of being redundant with adding Google Classroom, and they're adding a Google Classroom link to their teacher page in Clever
Yep.
as well.
Yep,
so on your teacher page, you can add different links and apps. So they're also adding a link to Google Classroom. That way, if students miss scrolling down, they at least see Google Classroom on the teacher page. And especially right now, be as redundant as we can with the information with these kiddos, because what they see and what they're trying to do, if with all their siblings on at the same time, there's a lot going on. So as much information as we could put it everywhere for them, the easier it'll be for us in the long run.
Yep, absolutely.
And then I'm going to back up to that Zoom scheduling question.
Perfect.
So I am going to share my Zoom. So this is my Zoom meeting. So once you log into your zoom.us account, you can click on the meetings tab, and then you want to go to schedule a new meeting. What you'll want to do is you'll want to title your meeting, and you can title your meeting whatever it is that you call your class. So mine would just be Mrs. Ali's science class. The description, that could be for you. You don't have to put anything there. And then right here where it says when, this is where you would put the last day of school. So I'm going to click this little calendar symbol, and I'm going to click this arrow until I go all the way to, I'm just going to go to June 1st. And I click June 1st, and now it says June 1st, 2021. The time, it doesn't matter. We're not going to be in school at that time. For the duration, since we're going to have those premium accounts, the duration doesn't matter because we can have Zoom meetings for 12 hours if we wanted to. We're not going to, but you can have them for any duration you want. So I'm not even going to touch it. Time zone, it's our time zone. And then I can go and I can put in a password. I can choose my personal meeting room. I can generate things automatically. I can change and do whatever I want. Then the host and participant video, I can make sure that's on, make sure I have my waiting room enabled. For me, I like to mute my participants upon entry, but if you're dealing with littles, I wouldn't have them muted when they come in because then you'll have to somehow teach them how to unmute themselves. And the best way to just do it is once they're logged in, share your screen and just show them where all the controls are. So once you save that, oops, I have to enter a password. Don't enter a password like that because that's way too easy to hack. And then you save it, and that is now what you have. So you have a link now that you can copy and share with your students. You know what your password is that you can also share with them. And when you go to actually start your meeting on the first day of school, you would click My Meetings, and you would find where that meeting was. So Mrs. Ali's science class, and then you would hit start. And if you're secondary, I have like first period, second period, third period, fourth period, and the start date is also for the end of the school year. So if you're secondary, you would have just one class period, one Zoom link for every single class period, and they would all be different numbers, as you can see here. So that's what you would do versus elementary, you would just have one. Secondary, you would have one for every single class period.
All right. While you were showing them that, I was scrolling through the chat and I saw a couple questions about if we can provide resources for keyboard shortcuts, and we can definitely do that. We did a PD in the spring, and I want to say we talked about that, but I can definitely, we have a sheet that has some keyboard shortcuts and stuff on it, and we can share those out as well. Yes, keyboard shortcuts are my friend. Okay, so we answered those. Good. Okay, so saw a couple of these questions too. It says, would you recommend using Screencastify and Zoom, or one rather than the other? And so Zoom and Screencastify, they're different. So Screencastify you wouldn't necessarily use with other students. It is going to be something that you would do to create like a resource for students. You can use Zoom. So like that's what we're using right now, is you can use Zoom. But if you wanted to create a video resource or an audio resource for your students, you would use Screencastify. If you were meeting with them, those types of things, then you would use Zoom. And then, is Bitmoji Classroom only recommended if you are working from home? No. You could use a Bitmoji Classroom. If we were in class in person with kids, you could still create a Bitmoji Classroom. It kind of became a thing because we're doing distance learning, but no, you can definitely, like, it would be such a cool way to create like a little resource page for kids and something like that. So no, this isn't something that you only use because we're teaching virtually. No, this, all the things that we talked about in the spring and all the things that we've talked about now are great for distance learning, but they're also great for when we're back in our brick and mortar classrooms and we're working with kids live. You can apply these tools and stuff whether you're doing it virtually or in person.
And then there was another question about the scheduling for Zoom. So should you put the start dates or the end of the year and unclick reoccurring? So the date that the meeting occurs should be the very last day of school, and do not click reoccurring. If you click a reoccurring meeting, then it's going to want a start date and an end date, and it's going to create a meeting, and you're going to have 182 different meetings on your meetings page. And we don't want 182 different meetings. We
No.
want one for elementary or 7 for secondary.
Yep.
And it's Marshall and I came up with this idea just for the simplicity of it. You can definitely do reoccurring meetings if that's what you want. Definitely you have that option. But for us, it was stressful looking at all of those meetings. And then for secondary to do a reoccurring meeting for every single class period, that meant that they had 182 times 7.
Yeah.
So way too many to sort through, and then figuring out, okay, well, which one is this one, and watching them all disappear, making sure the timing that you put in there is correct, because the timing for the meetings in Zoom, you can't just type in a time. It goes by increments of 15 minutes. So it doesn't 100% reflect the different times for all the class periods. So that was also something that we were talking about and how to deal with that. That's why we came up with just having one link all day for elementary, and then just one link all year for each class period for secondary.
And even if you wanted to, if you're doing elementary, if you wanted to do one for each like subject, like if you wanted to do a math and then an ELA and a science, you totally could. It'd be very simple to just have one meeting that you just run all day. But if you wanted to kind of break it up and have those different meetings, you could totally do that as well.
And
Again, it's
then,
it's just sorry. These are just recommendations. We're just kind of things that we've thought about, things that we've heard from other people, and we're just trying to give you guys our thoughts, our recommendations. But ultimately, like, you know what's going to work best for you. You know what's going to work best for your situation. So definitely set it up the way you want. But these are just kind of just our 2 cents of things that we're throwing out.
and then a password is actually mandatory. So when you schedule a meeting, it never will let you have nothing where the password is. So you have to have a password no matter if you're in kinder or in 12th grade.
Yep.
And you also need to have a waiting room as well. And that's just for security purposes.
Yep. And so, speaking of passwords, I don't know if this was a question, but I know it definitely should be addressed. Obviously, secondary, you're going to create a Zoom link for each of your periods. You're obviously going to want to have a different password for each of those links, for each of those Zoom sessions. Sorry. Elementary, since you're dealing with just the same kids all day, you're probably fine. I mean, if you just do one session, one Zoom link, you're going to have the one password for the whole day. If you decide that you want to do a Zoom link for ELA, math, science, social studies, you can have the same password for all those because you're just sharing it with those specific groups of kids. So try to make it as easy on you and make it as easy on them as possible.
And then some people are saying that they don't have the upgraded version to Screencastify. So the first thing that I would do is I would make sure that when you sign in to Screencastify or you create your account to Screencastify, sign in with Google, because that's how all the free accounts are getting updated. And it should be happening soon. If it hasn't happened for you yet, double check your email. If it's turlock.k12.ca.us, then that's probably why it hasn't happened. Your email should be turlockusd.org.
Yep.
And if that is exactly what your email is, and you still don't have that upgraded version by Monday, please email Marshall or I, and we will definitely look into it.
Yeah. And there's also 750 teachers too. So maybe it just hasn't hit you yet, but definitely by Monday it should have hit everybody. On the topic of Screencastify, somebody asked if there's a max number of recordings or a max number of length. So since we have the paid version, you can make as many videos as you want, and there's no limit on how long your videos are. If you had the free version, you were limited to 5 minutes, but because we have the licensed version, you can make as many videos as you want and as long as you want those videos to be.
And then on the line of Zoom, a question came up in the chat. Is there a way to share a Zoom link with subs without us being there? The sub conversation, the district's working that out, and they're going to
Yeah.
be creating accounts for subs. Do not share any, like just normally with subs, don't share any of your information with the subs. Don't share your Zoom login. Don't share your password for your computer. Don't share anything like that. When it comes to subs, the district's going to tell us exactly what they're going to decide with that. But my suggestion is if you know you're going to be absent, like ahead of time, because it's a doctor's note, create a Screencastify video and post that for them to watch. If it's something like your kids started throwing up that morning and you're like scrambling, try to just have something where the kids can do something as easy as possible, or create just emergency sub plans for those days that the kids can do something without you. Just because with subs, even if they get their own accounts and they can run the Zoom meetings, we don't know how comfortable they are with the technology. So that's another thing that we're going to be looking at. But the district's definitely going to give us some information coming up soon about the direction for all of that.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say that they're working on that communication and giving us that direction. Okay, we talked about that. So somebody asked that I mentioned that my YouTube channel is linked in my Bitmoji Classroom. How do you make your YouTube channel private? So that's all in the settings. So maybe I'll work on that. And
And I can
then
keep going.
yeah.
Okay. So while Marshall's getting that up, the next question is, they had a question about hyperlinking to a presentation in Google Slides versus just opening up an editable slide. So to hyperlink to a presentation of Google Slide, and you said you hope that makes sense. So my understanding of what you wanted, are you talking about when you're, and if this person could comment in the chat if you're still here, are you talking about when you're sharing that Google Slide presentation with your student, how to share it in present mode? That way they're not opening up editable slides, or that way they're not able to see all the slides. If that's what you're asking for, then what you would do is you just click on the entire URL at the top and you delete everything, including the word edit at the very end. And instead of the word edit, you would type the word present. And that's what you would share with your students. And in order to actually share it with them, that way it's not editable. If you go to if you're in Google Classroom, you go to Google Classroom, create an assignment, and then you would paste in that new link that you had, that it just goes to present. But if we're talking not Bitmoji Classroom and just Google Slide in general, when you're in your Google Classroom and you're creating an assignment, you would just add the assignment right from your drive. And in Google Classroom, it'll ask you to make a copy for each student. So anything you upload, you can make a copy for them. So in Google Classroom, it's kind of like you're making an assignment and you're going to the Rizzo and you're copying all those copies for your students. In Google Classroom, that's what it has.
Rizzo. I haven't heard that word in a while. Okay. And now that you said that word, I hear. Da-dun, 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 da-dun.
Yeah, the entire time.
Okay, so here is our YouTube channel. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my account and I'm going to go to the YouTube studio. And when I go to my videos, you'll see the visibility. So who can see them? So obviously ours are public. So if I wanted to change it, I could change it to private or unlisted. So if it was private, that means I'm the only one that can see it. If it's unlisted, that means nobody's going to see it. But if I share that link with people, then they'll be able to access that that video. So you probably, if you're going to be making them and posting them onto YouTube and you don't want other people to see them, then I would make it definitely private or unlisted. You wouldn't want it to be public, because if it's public, anyone could search for it and find it. So definitely choose one of those two options, and then you'll see your videos there. But if like I went to your YouTube channel, I wouldn't be able to see them because they're unlisted. So only the people who have the link to those videos would be able to see them. So hopefully that answers your question for you. Answers your question.
And then there's another question about, do you have to have a Snapchat account to create a Bitmoji account? No, you don't. So when you download the extension for Bitmoji and you click on Get Started, it'll say login with Snapchat. But if you scroll down under it, then you can actually sign up for a Bitmoji and you can just use your email and put in a password for it. And so that way you don't have to go to Snapchat. The reason why people are creating a Snapchat account and linking their Bitmoji to their Snapchat is for two reasons. There's a friends part. So if you're friends on Snapchat, then you can, through your text messaging with texting people, you can actually add, well, if you have an iPhone, or otherwise you have to be in Snapchat, you can get Bitmoji pictures with your friends. So for example, Marshall and I became friends on Snapchat. That way when we're looking for Bitmojis for our virtual PDs that we were doing in March, April, May, some of them were from the friend Bitmoji section. That way we're both in the same picture. And then also with Snapchat, you'll see people that have these moving Bitmojis, they're 3D. They did that within Snapchat. So when Snapchat acquired Bitmoji, they integrated it in a way that your Bitmoji can come to life and you can have your Bitmoji dancing or pointing at things, and that's all through Snapchat.
Sorry, I was reading through the chat and I laughed because someone said, don't jam the Rizzo. So a good piece of advice was given in the chat. They said, if you delete everything, so you know how we were talking about, if you delete everything up to edit and do present, it's going to put it in the presentation mode. But if you also do that and replace it with preview, and there's preview $RM equals minimal, then it'll present it and it won't have that navigation bar at the bottom. So they just see the presentation. So that's also a good way to do it too. And yes, that made 100% sense.
That's awesome, Ashley. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then if you don't have a Snapchat account, you cannot make your Bitmoji move.
Yeah.
In the 3D way.
Can you show us how to hyperlink to a presentation in Google Slides versus just opening up the editable slides? Hyperlink to a presentation. So hyperlink it in presentation mode. Is that what? Hopefully that's what they were asking. I'm thinking that's what they were asking.
I think so. I tried to answer that before, and I don't know if I did it right.
Oh, you did? Okay. So then
if I want to record myself reading a book, is that possible to link that for the kids to click on Bitmoji, or do I have to pick one already recorded? Great question. You can record yourself with Screencastify reading a book, and then you can save it to your Google Drive. And then when you're done recording it and Screencastify opens a new tab, you can actually just copy the link that it gives you to share video, and you can take that link and link that directly in your Bitmoji classroom. So your students would see you reading the book. Or whether you're doing it under the document camera, Screencastify can pick up your document camera as well. So if you wanted to record yourself writing something and not just your face, you can choose your document camera for Screencastify.
Another question was that they came late and if this will be shared later. And yes, I'll share like I did this morning. I'll share the link out, and then it'll also be posted posted here on the YouTube channel afterwards as well.
And then in forced presentation mode, what keeps students from just advancing to the next slide if they don't click on a linked image? So this is where the comment in the chat about the preview $RM equals minimal. If you put that at the end instead of present mode, it'll stop them from advancing. And then if your Bitmoji classroom is just one slide, then they couldn't advance anywhere. But if you had multiple slides, because your agenda is going to be multiple days, or you're also linking within the slide itself, then you can stop them from advancing through the presentation by putting the preview $RM equal sign minimal.
Another question is, when you make your Bitmoji classroom and you download it as a PDF, are the links still usable? Yes, they are still clickable. So that's the nice thing, is they can't edit anything, but all the links are still functional. Another question, what's better, to embed something or to link it? So it just depends. The only reason why you would ever really want to embed something is if you're putting it on like a website. And then if you're going to link to it, that's where you can post that into Google Classroom. You can post it, you can just give them the link, and then when they click on it, it'll take them to your Bitmoji Classroom. Embedding is more for if you're going to post it to like a blog or a website or something like that.
So I'm going to look this up right now, if you can sign up for Bitmoji on the web or if you can only do it via their app. Because there was a question that said that they downloaded the extension and they went and they hit get started, and there isn't anything that says create an account, just sign into Snapchat or sign in with your email.
In the chat, they're saying you can only do it via the app.
Oh, fabulous. So you can only do it during the app.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I apologize if I'm answering something that was already answered, but I'm seeing it come up in the Q&A again. So a couple people are asking if we can kind of re-explain the whole, like, why would we start our Zoom meetings on the last day of school? So the reason why we were recommending to have your start date be the last day of school is when you go into Zoom and you click on meetings and you see your list of meetings, you're only going to see that one link there, and your students will only need that one link. And if you start it on May 28th, May 31st, June 1st, whenever, and you go to Zoom, all you have to do on the right-hand side, you just have to click start, and you can start that meeting. And you can start that meeting every day. If you set it up for August 12th and you're done, then it goes away and it becomes a previous meeting. So that way it's just one link that your kids need to worry about, one link that you need to worry about. Especially for our secondary teachers, I can just see one period one link, one period two, period three, period four, all the way down. If I did a reoccurring one, and I'm an elementary teacher and I'm just going to do one Zoom link for like my whole day, then when I go into my meetings, I'm going to have 181, 182 meetings. And then my kids are going to have to go to 182 different links. If you're a secondary teacher and you do reoccurring meetings for each period, so I teach 6 periods a day. So now I'm going to have 182 meetings times 6. And so when you go to your meetings page on Zoom, that is going to be extremely just congested with so many different meetings, and it might be hard to try to figure out which meeting am I supposed to be in. So if you just do it where you have the start date be the end of the year and you just click start every time you want to start a meeting, you just have to deal with one link, one meeting. You don't have to fiddle with all the extra stuff. So hopefully that makes sense, and hopefully you did a good job explaining it. If you still have questions about it, like, please feel free to email us. We can walk you through it and kind of just have a discussion about it if we need to. But hopefully that makes sense. It's definitely more for our secondaries because they'll have so many meetings, but it helps too with our elementary teachers, because then our kids only have to worry about one link. They just have to worry about one password. They don't have to try to figure out, okay, well, today is September 12th, what link am I supposed to be on? They just know this is the one link I go to connect with my teacher and connect with my classmates. So it's trying to make it as simple as possible.
And then you as the teacher aren't constantly re-uploading links.
Yes.
Every single day. Because if you forget on a day and you're in there and your kids aren't, it's just going to get super confusing. And then while we're on the topic of Zoom, we had mentioned that you can create your Bitmoji Classroom. Like, you can put a picture of that as your waiting room in Zoom. Once we get our upgraded accounts in Zoom, there's an option to edit our waiting room, and we can change what it says, and we can add a logo, but that logo can be a picture.
Yep.
So then we can add the picture that way. And we're not able to do it until we get our upgraded accounts. But once we get our upgraded accounts, Marshall and I, we're putting a PD together for August 11th, which will be recorded if you're choosing the curriculum PD. So you'll still be able to see our virtual PDs just like March, April, May when we had them live and then recorded them.
Yep.
So we'll have all of those instructions on how to do it once our accounts go premium.
Yep. Okay. Somebody asked, how do we link Aries with Google Classroom? We discussed that in our PD on Monday, but, and of course I don't have, yeah, check out the video on Monday. We went through the steps. You can watch the video, or on the schedule where we post all the Zoom links and stuff, there's links to the presentation. So go there and we have step-by-step on how to link your Aries and your Google Classroom together.
And then there's a question about back to school night. For back to school night, would we recommend having a webinar or just a regular Zoom meeting for your back to school night? I would defer that question to your site principal, because your site principal should be able to direct your entire staff on what you guys want to do, because I'm sure they want to keep it the same and equal and standardized for everybody. So I would definitely defer to your site principal for that.
And I'm pretty sure, I'm about 99.999% sure that you guys just have the option to create meetings. I don't think you guys are going to have the option to create webinars. So I think you'll just be able to do a meeting. So the webinar is like an extra like add-on that we had to get for, yeah. So you guys just have meeting options. Another question, when it's time for lunch, do we pause our Zoom or do we end the meeting and then restart it? So that's 100% up to you. I know, just like again, it kind of depends on how you want to run the classroom. I know I've been talking to some teachers and they're just gonna like run it all day. And this is especially true for our this is especially true for our elementary teachers. So they're gonna run it all day. And when it's lunchtime, they're going to share their screen and they're gonna have like a countdown going. And they're just gonna go full screen countdown. So the kid can have their Chromebook open and they can look and they say, okay, I know I have 20 minutes left, I have 30 minutes left, or whatever. If you choose and you want to just pause it or end it and then tell them, okay, I'll see you back at 12 o'clock, and you'll use that same link and they'll use that same password, they can do that as well. So it's really 100% up to you. There is no right way to do it. There's no wrong way to do it. It's just, it's 100% on how you want to run it, how you want to run your classroom. So you can have it run all day and you can just have those, timer reminders if you want, or you can say, okay, we're going to break, log off, I'll see you in 20 minutes, and then they can log back on. So 100% up to you.
And there was a question about if we can provide a PD on Zoom breakout rooms. Yes, we are going to be doing that, and that's going to be on Tuesday. But all of our basic accounts have the ability to do the breakout rooms. If you go into settings, you can enable that. That way, if you're meeting with your PLC or anything like that before Tuesday, you could practice with it. But Marshall and I are going to be going over that on the Tuesday webinar that we have.
Yes. And then, so the person who asked the question about pausing and not, they're still here because they asked, how do you do a countdown in Zoom? So it isn't actually in Zoom. So what I would do is the easiest way to do it is to, actually, I'm doing this and I should share my screen so you can actually see what I'm doing. Okay, so what I would do is I would share my screen with my students. I would go to a Google page. I would type in timer. Google has a timer built in right here. So let's say lunch is, I forget, I think lunch is, let's just say 40 minutes. So then I'm going to type in 40 minutes. I'm going to click start. And then I'm going to click on this box here so it goes full screen. So now this will show up on my student's screen. So they can look and see, okay, I have 39 minutes left before we need to come back for lunch. And they'll have that, basically that countdown just going on their screen. And then it'll actually, I won't do it here, but it'll actually, once it gets down to 0, it'll make a sound. So then they will be able to hear that the timer went off and they know it's time for them to come back. So that's
someone
how
said
you
that
would do that.
Class Dojo has one too. They have a little timer. So that's awesome.
Perfect. There you go. Okay. So someone said, we're kind of off topic, but is there a way for students to screenshot on their Chromebooks? Yes. So I know earlier people were asking for the keyboard shortcuts. In that PDF, there is a shortcut for doing screenshots on Chromebooks. So there's 2 different ones. There's a full screen screenshot where if you do that, it's just going to take a picture of the entire screen. And then there's another one.
Snippet.
Thank you. Where you can do it, and then you can take just a certain part of it, and you can choose the part of the screen that you want to do a screenshot. But that's included in our screenshot PDF. But
and then I'm going to attempt to show you.
Okay.
So the button, oh no, it's closing out the light. The button that Marshall's talking about that has like all the squares on it is this one.
Yeah, it looks like 3 squares stacked on top of each other.
Yeah, yep. So it's that. So control plus pushing that button does the entire screen, and then control shift with that button does your little snipping tool.
Yep. Good
and
question.
We can look out for Marshall's next email, because when he sends it out, we can put that in there. And I know someone had asked for like typing with accents, so we can put the international mode, how to set that up, and how to type with accents on that, because that's a whole process you got to set up on the Chromebook too.
So another question was, can we add a link for Class Dojo on Clever? So yes, the way I would do that is in your Clever teacher page, you can add a link to Class Dojo there. So you would go to your Clever teacher page, and then you would add a link, and then put the link to Class Dojo in there, and your students would then just click on your teacher page, and then they would have access to Class Dojo there.
And I scrolled all the way back up to the very start of the chat, because there are some questions that we just started firing through right when we got in that I do want to just have on our recording. So one question was, can you have a single conversation with a student or breakout group without the other students hearing it? So that's yes and yes. So when you have breakout rooms, all of those breakout rooms have completely separate conversations, and you can be in the main classroom and have a conversation and you're not hearing anything that's happening in any of those breakout rooms. And if you as a teacher move into another breakout room, you're having a conversation and all you're hearing is that. So the one thing about Zoom is when you're in those breakout rooms, they are all separate rooms. No one can hear anyone else's conversation. And I know there was a few more in there. If you have any paras or aides and they have a Zoom account, once we get our upgraded Zoom accounts, you're going to be able to make them co-hosts. And when you make them co-hosts, they will have the ability to admit students into your meeting, mute students, but also they'll have the ability to move into a breakout room. So I would always just have one breakout room available at any time if you have a student that needs to get redirected or needs that one-on-one time like consistently. That way the para can move into the room with that student.
So there's also a question that says, so in your guys' classrooms, you guys are all getting new monitors that have webcams built into them. And so this person said that they noticed that the new webcam on the monitor is very wide. And they said, is there any way to like zoom in on that? I'm not 100% sure. Because I have one of those in my office. So I will check on Monday to see if that is a setting that we can adjust. And if it is, I will definitely let you know. I know you can kind of tilt it so it can swivel up and down, but zooming in and out, I'll have to look into that to see if that is doable, but I'll look into that for sure. Will you be getting them before Wednesday? Yes, they are. Our IT department has been going through and installing them this week. And as of today, either almost all the sites are done, but I know that they were, their goal was to have everything done today. If not, I think they're going to be coming in over the weekend to working on it as well. So yes, you will definitely have them by Wednesday.
And then there's a question about Cami. If we assign a Cami assignment, will students be able to use it even if they don't have the app? So Cami is an extension, and if you assign an assignment, um, you're assigning it and then you're telling students to open it with Cami. So students would have to get that extension. So you'll have to send students that link to go to the Chrome Web Store to add Cami, and then you'll probably have to explain to the students about that puzzle piece Marshall and I were talking about. That way Cami's up there. But then when the students open up a PDF document, at the very top it'll say open with, and then the choice would be Cami. And then they would have to save it and then re-upload it that way. So you would have to walk your students through how to get to it. But if they're high school students, most of them just tell them Cami is an extension, go get it. This is how you spell it. Tell them it's spelled with a K. And then they should be able to figure it out. And especially for our high school students, tell them there's YouTube videos galore out there. Because a huge skill for them to learn is to be self-sufficient and to find these answers. But definitely walk them through it if they need it for our younger kids, but they will need that extension.
Okay. Did we get everything? So we talked about that one already.
Oh,
Okay.
someone has, what microphone should we choose if we are using our site computers? Mine has 3 options: default echo, or communications echo, or echo canceling speakerphone. Let's see. And that was put when we were talking about Screencastify.
Okay.
So what I would do when you're choosing your microphone is, when you choose your microphone, there's a little like microphone symbol right next to it. And there's a little green bar that goes up and down depending on how much voice it's picking up. So select one and look, and as you're talking, just before you're starting the recording, just as you're talking and testing it, is it picking it up? Or if it's really low, then choose another one. Because Marshall may know, I don't know which, what it's picking up per se.
Yeah. You would have to, that's probably the best way, is just to kind of check and see which one. They should show you just the ones that are available to you. So it might, yeah, I would just check. And even if you wanted to, like Satara said, click on each one, start talking, check those levels as they're going up and down. Another thing that you could do is you could just record like a quick 5-second video and say, this is a test of the microphone, and then choose each one and then listen to all 3 of them to see, okay, which one's actually going to sound the best. But I know with those new monitors, they have built-in mics, and I haven't figured out which one is the best one to use, but you kind of just have to kind of troubleshoot a little bit.
And then someone asked about the drawing options on Screencastify. So we never specifically went over the drawing options on Screencastify, just because sometimes that box pops up and it stresses some teachers out when they're recording and they don't want all of it, or they're trying to point at something with their mouse and it ends up drawing a squiggle. But if you were to click on more options, then you can select a countdown, enable drawing options, and then a little box would come up that would allow you to select different things that you want. And all of those have different shortcuts to it that are different from your Chromebook shortcuts. So if you want the Screencastify shortcuts, I would suggest clicking on the hamburger, going into your settings and clicking where it says keyboard shortcuts, just to see what those specific Screencastify shortcuts are.
Yep. Okay. I think.
Someone said they were on their Chromebook and they weren't able to upload these apps. So you have to go to the Chrome Web Store and then go under extensions, because these are extensions. They're not actually applications. So Cami is an extension, Screencastify is an extension, and Bitmoji is an extension.
Yep. Oh, okay. We talked about that.
Oh, when we have a caseload of 50 plus, what is the best way to make a classroom? Do I have to do individual accounts for each student? So I assume when you say caseload that every single student shouldn't be seeing each other and shouldn't know that they are on your caseload. And because of that, yes, if you are creating a Google Classroom, you will need to create a different Google Classroom for each student. But when you post things, if you're posting, for example, breathing tools, you can post that breathing tool attachment to multiple classes at a time. So then you can select all 50 of your classes, and then all 50 of your students in those different classrooms would get it. But the best way to keep everything private is to have separate classrooms, just because right now, if you added all students onto the into one classroom, when the students go to the people tab, or the parents log in as a student and go to the people tab, or the parents are standing behind the kids and looking, they'll see the first and last name of the students. So it completely depends on the privacy requirements within your caseload, within your job. But if other people aren't allowed to see the first and last names of the students, then you'll have to just create separate classrooms for each.
That's probably going to be the safest and most secure way to do it too.
And then someone posted last year in Clever, the Google Classroom link didn't work. Will this be fixed? I would check the Google Classroom link now and see if it takes you to Google Classroom. If it doesn't, then I would input a link on your teacher page, and then definitely email Marshall or I, and we can get in touch with those that we need to, or figure out if it's something that we have access to within Clever, and figure out how to change that and get it to work. But I do remember that conversation last year that Google Classroom was on there, but it wasn't taking people where they should have gone. But check to see if it works, and we will check too, and we will follow up on that. But thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
I think that might be it. If we
I
didn't
think
get
so.
to your question, please comment or put something in there, and let me go back in the Q&A and make sure we got everything. Oh, no, there were a few added in the Q&A. Are we getting a Cami Pro district license? I know a Google form was sent out that the teachers had to fill out. So I think once the district looks at that and they see if there is a lot of response to that after looking at the budgets, and because I know that they're looking at how to support different programs with getting math. And then today Heidi talked about how everything that her and Shelly were talking about, everything that they were getting to help different subject areas. So I think after they look at that, we'll probably know. But at this time, Marshall, correct me if I'm wrong, at this time, I don't think we're looking, the district is looking into that. But you could definitely check with your site principal and see if it's something that you could purchase at your site.
Yeah, and I know we've gotten some questions about Cami. We've gotten questions about Nearpod and Pear Deck, and we're kind of going to, like Satara said, we sent that email, we sent that form out, and then we're going to kind of look at the responses. We do have some COVID funds, and so based on that and the responses that we get, we'll kind of talk about it, make those decisions based on your guys' feedback. But at the moment, we don't have anything, but that doesn't mean that it is a for sure no. It just kind of depends on how things kind of shake out.
And the survey was sent by Heidi, so I would just search Heidi's name in your Outlook email, and because she doesn't email everybody often, and just look at the last few emails, and then you'll be able to see where she was talking about that.
Yeah. I
And
don't
then,
think I was gonna say I thought it might have been posted on the district website, but I'm not sure if it is or not.
Oh yeah.
But definitely check emails from her.
And then there's another question about if there was a list available of all the approved apps and extensions. And on our Tech and TUSD website, we have all of the approved apps on there. We have how you can fill out a form to get an app or extension approved to use. We have different helper videos. It's also where you go to get the COVID-19 login information. All of that on our website is right there. I also pasted in the chat the link that'll take you to all the approved apps. That way you can see what's approved and what are the restrictions, if any, with these apps.
Yep. There was a couple questions about posting the Bitmoji as their classroom header. Does it have to be resized? Yeah, so Google Classroom header has a specific size that it needs to be. Off the top of my head, I don't know what it is, but if you just search Google Classroom header size, it'll come up for you, and then you would just want to create either a Google Drawings document or a Google Slides and just have that specific size be the size of the Google Classroom header. And I can show you how to do that. So if I wanted to, I'm going to go ahead and share this presentation. So if I wanted to change the size of this, so this goes for anything. So if I wanted to make something for the Google Classroom header size, or if I wanted to create like a document that's going to be like the size of a piece of paper or something like that, if I go to File and I go down to Page Setup, this is true for Google Slides and Google Drawings. By default, it's going to be this widescreen, but you can go down to Custom, and then here you can change the size in inches, or you can go centimeters, points, pixels. For the Google Classroom header, it's probably going to be in pixels. And so you can change this up. So if you wanted to make something 8.5 by 11, you could do that. If you wanted to make something poster size, 20 inches by 24 inches, something like that, you could do that here. And you can change up the size of your slides, or if you're doing it in Google Drawings, it'll change the size of the canvas for you. So hopefully that answers that question for you.
There's another, oh, and then, thank you. Someone posted in the chat the size for the Google Classroom header.
Perfect.
1000 by 250.
Awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
See, this is why just Zoom is awesome, because we're all just working together for the common goal of making sure that we all have our dream distance learning classrooms come Wednesday. It's super exciting. There's another question. This is a Google slide question. Is there a way to share only one of the slides in the presentation? I'd like to make virtual classrooms by week or by month, so I want to save them on one presentation, but only allow visits to a certain week. Does that make sense?
I think so. What you can do is, I'm going to share my screen again, and this is what I'm thinking. And Satara, if you think of something else, let me know. So what I'm thinking is, let's pretend that this is, if I'm understanding the question correctly, they want basically like a slide a day, or a slide a week, or a slide a month. So let's say each of these slides is a different week. What you can do is you can go in, and if you if you go to View and you go, no, I always forget where this is. You can hide the slides. You can skip them. So
right click, and then
skip. I always I always skip over the skip slides. That's your joke for 3:45 on a Friday. So if I go to skip slide, then you'll see it has a little eye with a line through it, so they won't see it. So you can leave this week and you can skip all the other ones, and then as you go, so I've already done this one, so now I'm going to skip this slide, but then I want this slide to be viewable. So you can just go through and kind of toggle those on and off that way. That's what.
Yeah, that way if you're in like presentation mode, they don't even see that as an option.
Yep.
And then I was even thinking, if you wanted to share it with them as a PDF, you could then just share specific numbers of slides. So if we were like printing or saving anything as a PDF, we don't have to save the entire thing. We can choose what pages within the PDF. So then you can do it that way.
Yeah. So if I wanted to like just share this one, I could do File, I could do Download As, I could do it as an image, but it wouldn't have any of the clickable links or anything. But if I did a PDF,
I think we have to go to print and then PDF.
Oh, yes. You're right. So,
and the reason why Marshall and I are going to print and PDF, because if you just do PDF, it downloads the entire thing. But if we go to print, then we can change the printer to a PDF instead. And then, this is probably going to take a bit because we have all those GIFs on there.
Yeah.
And then that's how you can like change up the pages and stuff. I think it's
there
because
we
it's
go.
a huge file. Oh,
okay. So instead of doing it to a printer, we're going to do save as PDF. And then if I wanted to share everything, I'm going to do everything. If not, I can go custom and I can choose, like, I only want to give them slides 1, slide 5, 6, and 10, let's just say. So then it's only going to, when I save that PDF, it's only going to save those specific slides. So then you can go through and, okay, I only want them to have these slides for this week, and you can save it that way, and it'll just have those. It won't have all, 30 something slides that we have here.
And then there's a question, do you know if the purchase programs, Lexia, ST Math, etc., will be available district-wide, or is it site-specific?
So it depends. If your site purchase it, it's going to be site-specific. If the district purchased it, then it would be site-wide. But so it just kind of depends on how it was purchased.
And then Marshall and I can work on, like, we had tried to work on something like this last year where we had a list of all the apps that were purchased at each site, but then we were finding that we didn't know that things were being purchased or that people had stuff, and then each department sometimes had something that was different from other departments, and some PLCs had stuff because they use their PLC or department funds, so it got really convoluted really, really quick. So the best thing to do, like if you want to know what apps your site has, would be to reach out to your AP at your site for curriculum and instruction, because they should know what apps your site has. But then right now, district-wide, we've got Screencastify and Zoom, and then the list of other things, if other things will be purchased, will come out. So the only things I do know about for the district is just Zoom and Screencastify, as far as like a list for the district. Everything else is completely site dependent.
I know there was a question about sites being blocked. If you could send us the link to those sites that are being blocked, so then we can check those out and we can send them off to our network team, that would be probably the best way to try to solve that. Okay, I think I'm just scrolling through again just to make sure we didn't miss anything. I think we've answered all the questions. Like always, if you have any questions, please, 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 please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm not trying to make an excuse, but I am a little swamped email-wise right now, so I'm trying to do my best to catch up on emails. So if I haven't answered an email, it's not intentional. It's just I'm trying to catch up on emails right now. So be patient with me as I try to answer all your guys' emails, but send them.
And just email us both on them, because you'll
Yeah.
get a response from one of us or the other, sometimes both of us at the same exact time. And
Yeah. And we answer the same thing, and we're like, oh.
Yeah. And then we respond, we're like, oh, ditto. And
Yes.
yeah. So you'll get like 4 or 5 emails from us within like a 30-second time period. But
Yes.
definitely just email us both, even if there are questions on how do you want to assess your students. So you can share with us how you've been doing assessments, and we can give you different ideas. We're here for everything with getting you started and even during the entire process.
Yeah.
So definitely reach out with anything, anytime.
Any type of question. That's what the two of us are here for. We're here to support you guys and get us through not only just these virtual learning times, but just normal times in general. So with that, we're going to go ahead and end this. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Try to relax, try not to stress too much. I know that is way easier said than done, but try your best. And then we'll catch up with you guys later. So have a great weekend.
Bye.
Bye.